Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all having a nice week. We'll just give it one more minute to let anyone else sign in that needs to. How have you can use the chat bar at the side. How have you found the activities so far from Changing Education this week? That's good. So they've been quite easy to use. I wasn't sure because obviously they had planned, they would have been arranging proper work experience for you. I wasn't sure how it was all going to work. So I'm glad you've been able to access them well. So we'll start now. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Bear with me one moment. Okay, so hopefully you're able to see my screen. So I'm just going to pull up the PowerPoint. If you can't see it, do just let me know. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit this afternoon about LMI, so labour market information, and the effects that Covid-19 are having and may potentially have moving forward. So anyone know what labour market information is? You can just pop it in the chat box. If you don't know, labour market is also known as the job market. So it refers to the supply and demand for labour in which employees provide the supply and employers supply the demand. It's a major component of any economy, and it's intricately tied in with markets for capital, goods and services. So given everything that's going on, it's more important than ever for us to understand our labour market and what's going on. So we've all seen the effects of Covid-19 on our everyday lives, the lives of key workers, and obviously on the health service. In particular, Covid-19 has also had a huge impact with the UK lockdown on the British economy. So that naturally will have an effect on workforce and the labour market. So what we do know is that according to the Office for National Statistics, 30% of the workforce were on furlough. The UK economy contracted 25% in the first quarter of this year, and the Office for National Statistics also reported that the number of people claiming benefits primarily for the reason of being unemployed rose by 69.1% in April. So what does that mean for you guys? I mean, it means naturally that you will be entering a very competitive labour market. There will be lots of uncertainty even beyond COVID-19. Society's views on important jobs may change drastically. There'll be lots of other forces at work that we were going to need to take into account before this crisis, and they included Brexit, digitalisation and globalisation. It will be close to impossible for young people to decide on a career. So your focus should be on the development of skills. Because of the nature of digitalisation, it means that actually we might not be able to project what kind of jobs are going to be available. So that's why you need to be focusing on the development of skills. So just got to stop sharing for a moment because someone's just trying to come in. Bear with me 1 second. So can you just let me know in the chat that you can actually see my PowerPoint here? Okay, great. So it's always harder for young people in a recession, and the trends for young people when we do eventually return to normal, it's likely to be the same as for previous recessions. So this graph here shows us that past experience tells us that crisis leavers experience higher levels of unemployment than other cohorts. You can see here that the crisis leavers who are not graduates have consistently higher percentages of unemployment. Pay levels are likely to decrease for 16 to 24-year-old. So today's leavers that do find a job will on average be paid less than if they had left outside of a crisis. The effects on different sectors will vary. Most damaging is for low qualified young people in vulnerable sectors. So the first rung of the ladder being a negative experience in the world of work. And the sectors that are included in this graph here are just on the right hand side. So non-food and general retail, transport, hospitality, travel, arts and entertainment, cleaning, hairdressing, and physical well-being activities. You'll see here again that young people with a degree are less likely to be working in those affected sectors as they progress through their careers. So the tab along the bottom shows the years since leaving full-time education, and you can see that that column in blue drops a lot more than the other columns do, for example, in those sectors. So the implications that you need to consider, new apprenticeships are down 80% at the moment. Now that may change. The latest unemployment figures estimate that there are about 2.1 million people unemployed in comparison with 1.29 million people this time last year. The labour market takes some time to recover after a recession or an economic crisis. So there'll be a really tough hiring market for some time after. New jobs will be only 1/3 of the level as before the crisis. There are 800,000 young people about to leave schools, colleges and universities, all hoping to join the labour market. There are 8.4 million people who have been furloughed. While hopefully most of them will, we hope, return to their jobs, it's likely that a proportion of them won't. The Bank of England's survey of chief financial officers estimates an 18% fall in employment this year. So what type of policies can help? So the recommendation from various different groups recommend that for policies that have focus on helping more young people stay on in education for longer, and to target support for those young people who are entering the workplace. What is the government doing to support young people? On the 10th of July, Boris Johnson made an address to Britain's school leavers and young people. I don't know if any of you actually saw the address, but just to sum up, he thanked young people for their efforts with social distancing and the UK lockdown. He acknowledged the sacrifice that you've all made in terms of your final kind of terms in school. But he called on school leavers to show even further resilience and pledged to build back better. So this idea of returning to an old normal, I think, is what we want to move away from. He admits the road ahead will involve challenges, but that there will be opportunities available. And finally, the PM asked young people to help him build a better, brighter new world. So following that, the Chancellor made his summer statement or mini budget in Parliament last week with up to 30 billion of new stimulus measures to kickstart the economy. The job retention, the key messages from that were the job retention bonus to encourage firms to retain furloughed staff, 6-month VAT cuts for restaurants, hotels and attractions, stamp duty cuts and green homes grants, discount on restaurant meals in August, infrastructure and decarbonisation, and support for young workers. So the support for young workers included the Prime Minister's Kickstart scheme, which is a £2 billion fund to pay for 6-month work placements for 16 to 24-year-olds on universal credit. Payments cover national minimum wage for 25 hours per week plus national insurance and pension contributions. £1,000 grant per trainee for employers who take on new trainees aged 16 to 24, aiming to triple the number of trainees. £2,000 grant for employers per apprentice under 25 hired, and £1,500 for those over 25 for 6 months. This doubling the number of work coaches at job centres across the country. There's a £150 million pot extra for the Flexible Support Fund, which provides help for job seekers. £100 million to fund studies for 18 to 19-year-olds who are unable to find work. £95 million to expand the work and health programmes to provide additional support, and a job finding support service for those out of work for less than 3 months. £32 million over 2 years for a national careers service to provide advice on work and training. So I think for me, the biggest part or the biggest message there was really around the apprenticeships grant for employers, although it might not necessarily impact you directly if you're planning on going to university. What it does mean is that employers are being given an incentive to hire people under the age of 25 into apprenticeships or for training. Unfortunately, I don't know if any of you heard the rumour about the £500 voucher we were all going to get. Would have been quite nice, but this actually is really, really positive. I think those two grants, £1,000 per trainee and the £2,000 grant for employers, are probably going to make quite a big impact on the take up of apprentices in the coming year. So what short-term jobs should you be looking at if you're planning on entering maybe on a part-time basis or even full-time in the kind of coming year? So information technology. Almost no one had heard of Zoom or House Party before the pandemic hit, but it's become a big part of, I think, all of our lives now. Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Skype are all hiring for workers at the moment. So if you are tech savvy, this could be a really good opportunity. Software engineers are currently one of the most in-demand roles. Healthcare companies have been the biggest hirers during the past 4 months. Recruitment consultant Reed has 51 jobs for 111 or 999 call handlers, many of which you don't need to be medically trained for. I mean, that in itself, you know, if you could get that part-time would be really great experience. Retail, but definitely not as we know it or are used to it. The high street took a big hit in recent weeks, but some parts of retail have emerged from the pandemic in a really strong position. Warehouse workers are in high demand. Anything to do really with online shopping. Reed currently lists 279 jobs with Parcel for Herms alone, while Monster has 415 delivery driver jobs. Fitness, the coronavirus crisis has spurred many people on to do more about their health. So more than 858,000 people downloaded the NHS-backed Couch to 5K app between March and the end of June. So personal trainers or people who can lead classes over the internet are likely to be in demand. I don't know if anyone hasn't been doing or at some point during this lockdown tried Joe Wicks. He's obviously done very, very well out of it. For a while there, I think it became a huge part of everyone's morning. I think we've all got a bit sick of it now. But and then lastly, farming. Last week, the National Farmers Union called for overseas farm workers to be added to the shortage occupation list to ensure migrant workers can come to the UK. Seasonal fruit pickers have been in high demand this summer, and as the main harvest approaches, probably continue to be the case. So that's in the short term, but long term, we'll look at different types of sectors. So given the green economy's boom on the back of coronavirus and the government's pledge to continue development in this area, young people should consider qualifications, training and experience that will enable them to work in a greener Britain. So from eco-friendly heating engineers to triple glazing fitters to renewable energy researchers and low emission vehicle engineers, there's likely to be countless opportunities in the future. It's also worth remembering that the likes of Ford, who are working on their kind of electric cars, will also need financial services and different types of occupations within that. Rebuild. So the PM has pledged to rebuild a brighter Britain, and I think we should take this statement literally. History has shown us that the best way to recover from an economic disaster is to build, build, build. It was proven after World War II in the early 80s, and more recently after the last recession. Jobs in construction, engineering and infrastructure development are likely to see significant growth. The biggest challenge to this will be a lack of a trained workforce in this field. We see fewer and fewer people every year going into construction. Tech. So before Covid-19, we knew that jobs involving the development and delivery of technology would be instrumental in the UK's digital revolution. The epidemic has only highlighted the need for us to close Britain's technology skills gap. The only way that the nation will be able to compete on the world stage is by doing this. So like I've said, we've seen the kind of demand for different platforms, whether that is platforms that support remote learning or platforms that support virtual meetings. There needs to be more development in that area. And then, of course, healthcare and public services. So it will come as no surprise that this area will need significant support and expertise, not only to recover from the current crisis, but also from years of funding cuts and budget cuts. The public service in England employs more than 5.5 million people in the UK, and 1.2 million of those are employed by the NHS alone, making it the largest employer in the country and in the world's top 5 largest employers. I mean, the thing is, I'm sure most of you are asking yourself, how am I meant to make a decision about my future with so much uncertainty going on around me? The good news is that you really don't. What you need to consider is how you're going to ensure you have the skills, knowledge, resilience and flexibility to overcome the uncertainty. The future will be all about skills. So those that are developed through academic work, through hands-on experience, but also just by making mistakes and learning from them. In a world where we'll see an aging, multi-generational workforce with ongoing changes in technology, it's unlikely that people will have a lifelong career. I think gone are the days where people left school and had a single job that progressed into a single career with a single pension at the end. Young people will need to be able to demonstrate the ability to adapt into new and changing and developing roles. There's certainly hope, and although we'll see significant challenge in the aftermath of this, young people, like I said, will need to be more resilient, more innovative and more enterprising than those that have come before them. But they're not the first generation that this has been asked of. I'm sure that you guys won't be the last. Britain has proved time and time again that it can recover and will continue to do so with the help of young people like you. In times of crisis, historically, there's been major breakthroughs in science, medicine, industry, but also in social change. And we're seeing this unfolding right in front of us. One thing is certain, the world can't go back to the old normal, even if we do find a vaccine in the near future. We've seen changes in the last 4 months that would have taken decades under normal circumstances, from this movement of working from home, virtual meetings, children learning from home, vaccine trials and healthcare innovations. It really has changed the landscape of the world of work forever, I think. So you can find out more about labour market information. I really like this website here. It's called LMI for All, and you can download these widgets, which are great because you can literally just type in here what the job that you're interested in, and it brings you up just a snapshot of kind of the projected change in the workforce, the salaries, the type of hours you're likely to work, and just different bits and pieces of information. But you can also use the National Careers Service. Amazing Apprenticeships is really good. Prospects is excellent, and Unifrog is really good for this stuff. When you type into Unifrog in their careers library, you know, a job, they have all this type of information on there, and that is live and it is updated regularly. So if you have any questions, you can use the chat box. I'm going to come back to sharing my screen in a minute, but if you have any questions about labour market information, you can just pop them in the chat box and I'll have a look. So any questions? Have I done a really good job and answered them all? Okay, I'm going to go back because it looks like you don't have any questions. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Bear with me 1 second. So tomorrow we've got some industry talks lined up for you. These start at 2 o'clock. They're on your interactive timetable with the Google Meets links. You can see here we've got a chap called Dominic Timmons from Grant Thornton, and he is going to talk about professional services. We've got Yogesh Gandhi, who's going to talk about tech and cyber security. He works for Vodafone. Victoria Heath from the NHS is going to talk about science and healthcare sciences. Mohammed Chanara is an engineer for KPMG, and he's going to talk, sounds really interesting, he's going to talk about like the oil and gas sector. Gurinder Dhillon owns his own, well, he owns the largest black taxi fleet in London, and he is going to talk about enterprise and starting up your own business and what you really need to take into account when doing that. And then we have Denzel Ford, who is a 3D gaming character artist, and he's going to talk about careers in media and in gaming. I know we've got quite a few people who are interested in that. So yeah, so they'll be at 2 p.m. tomorrow, and you can just click through to the link, just choose the one that you want to do, and it will take you through to the Google Meets section. Following on from your activities that Change in Education have given you, you'll be required to submit some of those at the end of the week. But we've also asked you to do a case study into the industry that you're interested in. And we said to include information about how things like Covid-19, digitalisation and Brexit will affect the sector. And where you can use tools like Unifrog or Prospects or the National Careers Service to kind of pull information together. Use graphs, charts. If you know anyone in the sector or you feel confident contacting someone in the sector, you could include like a little interview. But there is the opportunity for a few students to win a summer internship with UCL. So if you're interested in having a look at what UCL are offering, it's a they run it in partnership with an organisation called Investin. So you can go on Investin's website, and they've got some amazing programs on there. They've got computer science, they've got filmmaking, they've got engineering. There's loads and loads on there. The case study needs to be submitted to me by Monday, and if you just send it through to my email address, which is here. So if you have any final questions about either the talks tomorrow or about the case study, again, you can just pop them in the chat. Yes, so the case study is due Monday coming. So you should really be kind of using some of the information you're gathering from the activities this week to put together a case study. Now, it doesn't need to be really long. It can be, you know, maybe 3 sheets of A4, something like that. But use the information that you've learned from the videos that you've watched, from the live talks that you watch, and other information that you can get together, and send it to me then by Monday. I'll give you till the afternoon. Any other questions? Okay, so if there's no other questions, I'll let you go. I hope you enjoy the rest of the activities, and we'll hopefully see you tomorrow. Someone's just put forward, where do I send work? So the work that Changing Education have kind of given you, you need to send to them. So you just need to hold on to that, and then in your weekly timetable, there is a box, I think it's on Friday, where it says submit your work, and that will take you through to the portal that you need to submit it to from there. But the case study needs to just be sent to my email address, which is creffold@cannons.harrow.sch.uk. Okay, so if there's nothing else, I'll let you go. Have a nice afternoon, be good, and we'll see you tomorrow at the live talks. Thank you.